Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the awards contender. I'm very excited to welcome Cody Dericks from Next Best Picture back today. We have our final Oscar prediction video series coming your way, and we are starting today with the 9 technical categories. We are talking in alphabetical order, all 9, like giving our final predictions in those categories. How are we doing, Cody?
Doing good. I cannot believe we're at the point where it's like final predictions, but a lot of these categories, I feel like we have a lot of information in that we can already use to make a pretty educated guess.
Right.
We'll see.
I would say 6 of the 9 I'm feeling pretty good about, and then there's 3 that could go 2 or 3 different ways, so we'll get into it. So let's start with Best Cinematography, Cody. The nominees are The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu. So, I mean, there's easily a couple here we can eliminate to win, right? Like, how are you feeling about cinematography?
To your point, this is one of the more not locked up, Jesus. This is one of the more
Kind of is.
confidence categories in terms of my predictions. I think we can disregard Emilia Perez, which was a surprise nomination to begin with. I think we can disregard Maria, which is shot by the legendary Ed Lachman, but it's the film's only nomination. It's also not a Best Picture nominee, which Nosferatu isn't either, but I do think it has a little bit of a better chance than Maria. I also don't think Dune Part 2 is seriously in the running here, unfortunately, even though the last one won this category. I feel pretty good saying this is going to be a win for The Brutalist. Mm-hmm. It is such an expansive vision of a film. It's shot in VistaVision. Much was made about the way it was shot. You know, part of the story of the film is its cinematography. And when you have films that use tools and, I don't want to say gimmicks, but use things like that to tell a story both within the world of the film and outside of the fictional world of the film, that usually does well here in this category. I do think Nosferatu has a chance. It did very well with critic awards, but that feels like the kind of cool thing that critics would do that the Academy wouldn't do. So I'm going to say The Brutalist.
Yeah, I think if Nosferatu had gotten like a surprise Best Picture nomination or something, if that had really overperformed, got into like Director Picture, then I would say, I would love to see a horror film win Best Cinematography. Like, that would be crazy. I would go nuts. But yeah, I think that's in third place. I think Dune Part 2 is in some ways the only one that could overtake The Brutalist here. But I don't get a sense of enthusiasm, of passion this year for Dune Part 2, even though the first Dune, as you said, won in this category. Like, I mean, Dune Part 2, as we'll talk about, it might only win 1 or 2 technical prizes. Like, it's not going to win like a bunch like it did 3 years ago. So you go through the list of 5 films here, and The Brutalist just makes sense. I mean, I think if there's one category The Brutalist can win, it's this one. like obviously. So, I mean, there's been like the AI controversy, Cody. Like, do you think that could hurt The Brutalist here at all?
I don't think that affects this category. That seemed to be more to do with performance and sound. I'm not an expert, but I don't think it had any overlap with the way the film was shot. And we could talk about this later. I don't think the Academy would care either way, just knowing how the industry works. What made The Brutalist an even more obvious potential winner for me is when Nickel Boys did not get into this category. Which is weird, considering it did end up getting the Best Picture. I don't know how you watch that movie and don't single out the cinematography, which is, to my mind, the best of the year. It's the greatest achievement of camera work I've seen this year. If it was nominated here, I think it might put up a fight, just because when voted on by a broader Academy, I could see the perspective used in that film being a standout, as it should be. Mm-hmm. But when it wasn't nominated to here, I think it just kind of became an easy potential win for The Brutalist.
Yeah, that is one of the most baffling things that happened on Oscar nominations morning. Nickel Boys getting into picture, but not cinematography? Like, what? Like, that was really weird.
I don't get it.
Yeah. You'd think that would have gotten in, like, say, over Maria or Emilia Perez or something, but
It just goes to show what they value in this category, which is, this is going to sound strange, but is pretty pictures, which, film is a visual medium. Yes, I want to see gorgeous imagery. And not that Nickel Boys isn't beautifully constructed and with gorgeous composition, but the cinematography in that film is really all about the first-person perspective. So I don't think that's the exact type of achievement that the Academy cinematography branch values for some reason, as opposed to, gorgeous singular images, which all of the other 5 nominees in this, you could argue, do have.
Yeah. So outside of a shocker in cinematography, I feel like we're both pretty confident that The Brutalist is going to win here, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I would say, even though, as of this recording, we're like a month out, our final prediction at the Oscars to win Best Cinematography is The Brutalist. All right, next up is Best Costume Design. The nominees are A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. So Gladiator 2 is winning this, right, Cody?
The original one in this category.
There you go.
So, but
it's the only nomination for Gladiator 2.
Yeah, and that happens in this category sometimes. This is a category that's not afraid to go with films outside of the Best Picture lineup. We have things like Fantastic Beasts recently, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So it's not one of the categories that has to have a Best Picture nominated winner. But this year I do feel pretty confident that it's going to be Wicked. This is a category that it won the equivalent Tony at, 20 years ago on Broadway. It's a different designer, but still. And it's just one of those elements that is just such an obvious standout for this film. This is one of my more confident predictions of the night, and I felt this way for a long time. Basically, since we saw the first trailer, that is a costume design winner right there. You have, the iconic Elphaba Black outfits and the Glinda pink outfits, and color is part of the story of the film thematically. So those are really extra highlighted by the text of the film, and also there's everything Michelle Yeoh wears and all the vast number of ensemble characters, the Emerald City scene. It's just a very, very big showcase for costume design. I feel very confident about this prediction.
Yeah, I think this might be the most confident we're both feeling in the technical categories, because there's not a clear second place. There's not one other film here I say, well, maybe that could win. In terms of the costume design, is there anything super remarkable about A Complete Unknown, Conclave? I guess Nosferatu could be in second place. I love the costumes in that, but there's nothing extraordinary, I would say.
Nosferatu is my runner-up, but it's a distant second. This category went to Bram Stoker's Dracula 30 years ago, so I guess you could point to that as some sort of history, but that movie came out before some Academy voters were even born, so I'm not really gonna use that as a statistic to hang my hat on. If Dune Part 2 had been nominated here, I would say maybe that has a chance. It was one of the few categories that didn't win its first time around, and those costumes are spectacular. I really don't understand how it didn't get in here. It just kind of shows how weak that film was overall and how it kind of limped to a Best Picture nomination. Other than that, Gladiator 2 is its only nomination. Conclave is a lot of ornate costumes, and I'm not going to disregard the costumes, but I think it's pretty easy for an Academy voter to write that off as they just took priest frocks, which is not fair, but I can see that mindset. And then A Complete Unknown is just a lot of really accurate period costumes from 50, 60 years ago. Nothing really singular, nothing really standout-ish. Just a lot of very accurate world-building work there.
Yeah, it is interesting that Dune Part 2 missed. You'd think The Brutalist maybe could have gotten in here too. That's a period film.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a lot of suits, which they usually don't love, unless you're Oppenheimer, I guess, and that was the film of last year. But I think this is very, very easily Wicked.
Yeah, I mean, Wicked is going into this Oscar ceremony, one of the favorites of the year, and it would be weird if it didn't win at least one or two. Like in the technical categories, I mean, we'll see how well it does overall. We're all thinking at SAG, Wicked could do very well there. So, yeah, I think if there's one place Wicked can easily win, I would say it's costume design. So our final prediction to win Best Costume Design at the Oscars is Wicked. Now we have a tough one, Cody. I've been struggling with this. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on film editing.
I knew it was going to be this category, this stupid category.
In film editing, the nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, and Wicked. So, this is the one I've been scratching my head this morning, Cody. I feel like there's a path for at least 2, maybe 3 of these to win. How are we feeling about editing this year?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Okay, what can we
Dune was
eliminate
nominated here and it won the last time again, so that was kind of something we could maybe point out, but it didn't happen. I think the one we can kind of just say is definitely in 5th place is Wicked.
Yeah,
that was a surprise nomination.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, that movie is poorly edited in that the pacing is really bad. It feels really long. It feels longer than some movies in this category that are technically longer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5th place for me.
Okay, Wicked out. Okay. Emilia Perez, 4th place?
No. I think The Brutalist is probably... Nope. I think The Brutalist is probably 4th place.
What?
Dude, Emilia Perez could win this category.
Oppenheimer won editing last year. That's a long period film.
Yeah, that extra half hour, though, something about over 3 hours, Kill It to the Flower Moon, they just don't do it. The Irishman, and it was surprising that it even got nominated, frankly. I wasn't predicting it.
Ooh, okay.
Emilia Perez...
Not gonna win editing, is it? Cody, don't do that to me.
It is a very punctuated, exclamatory movie. You watch that El Mal sequence, it is like chop, chop, chop. It is very... It's a musical. It's structured like music videos throughout. There's a lot of long takes, but there's also a lot of showy editing. And it is a Best Picture frontrunner. I think it has to be considered a serious contender here. I think Emilia Perez, Conclave, and Anora, all 3 of those you could make a justified prediction for. The Brutalist, maybe. Wicked's the only one I'm kind of disregarding. But the other 4 all have a path here.
I mean, editing often goes, with the winner of Best Picture, right, Cody? That often happens in editing. No, not every year, but many times.
It's more that your film kind of needs a nomination here. It is very rare for a film to win Best Picture without an editing nomination. It happened with Coda recently. It happened with Birdman, but that kind of had the...
Yeah.
It was all one take thing. And those are the only 2 within this century. You need a Best Editing nomination to win Best Picture, which kind of shows that we have our Best Picture frontrunners in this category, except for Complete Unknown. I'd say all of these are contenders for very, very strong contenders for Best Picture. So I think Emilia Perez, Conclave, or Anora, I'm struggling to pick which of those 3 I'd go with. To your point, I'm going with the one I'm picking for Best Picture right now, which is Conclave. I think that has a very propulsive energy to it. Yeah. The thing you hear a lot about it is how entertaining it is. When you look at a movie on paper about people picking the next pope, you would not think that's going to be the movie that gets fans and memes and people watching it on Peacock. But that's a testament to the writing and the editing, which is it is a very well structured, well paced film. So I'm going with that. But I honestly think anything but Wicked could win here. Seriously.
Yeah, I have been leaning toward Conclave. I had Brutalist and Anora kind of right there. I'm just thinking about what's going to win. I don't see Anora winning editing and original screenplay, and that's it. That just feels weird to me. I feel like The Brutalist has a better shot of maybe winning picture, and it's probably winning director. So in that regards, that's why I was thinking, well, Oppenheimer won last year, and that's a longer period movie. Maybe the most editing, The Brutalist wins and gets editing, gets director, gets picture, maybe actor, we'll see. But then I've also thought about Conclave being this year's Argo. Like, didn't Argo win editing, screenplay, picture?
Yep. It could win. It could have the exact same path as Argo, which also didn't have Best Director.
Affleck not in director for Argo. So, like, it was tricky when, Conclave did not make it into director for Edward Berger. And then I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's not winning picture. But then you have the Argo thing. And it's like, well, a lot of people really like or love Conclave. It doesn't have any, controversy right now. I bet Conclave is going to show up pretty high on a lot of, preferential ballots and things. We'll see what happens at PGA. That's a few days away. But yeah, I think you've talked me into it. I was kind of like leaning toward one of those top three, Anora, Brutalist, Conclave. But I think you're right. I think in terms of like the pacing of Conclave, it has a really good rhythm to it. And I think it could maybe win picture at the end of the day if there's no consensus really, and it's kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I would personally love Anora to win. I love the editing in that movie. I just don't think that wins only editing and original screenplay.
No, I think if it wins editing, it's probably gonna eke out a semi-surprising Best Picture win.
Oh my god, I would lose my mind.
You're welcome. It has the energy and the feeling of a film that would win this category. It is, again, I'm going to use the word propulsive. It is entertaining. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like a thrill ride, especially that like chase Act 2 section. Sean Baker did the editing himself, so it would be another win for the filmmaker, who's probably going to win screenplay. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So it could happen. I'm kind of just, all things considered, there's a very wide open race, and there's a lot of different factors for each movie, but knowing how the Academy votes, I'm going with Conclave. Okay. But I don't feel good about it.
Yeah. I'm just like, after hearing what you've said, I actually came into this conversation, Cody, without like a clear decision about editing. I wanted to hear your thoughts. This
is not a clear decision. Let me be clear about that.
But, right, and we could both be totally wrong. It could go to like, it could go to Amelia Perez or something. Like, we could be like, what?
I really do think anything but Wicked could win here.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wide open. But right now, about a month away, our final prediction in Best Film Editing is Conclave. All right, next we have Best Makeup and Hairstyling. The nominees are A Different Man, Amelia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. So Cody, in makeup and hairstyling, I feel like if The Substance was not here, this is where Nosferatu could win, right? It's got 4 nominations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, yeah, I feel like, if that movie was going to win somewhere, horror films have been recognized in makeup before, going back decades. So that would have been really cool. But I'm feeling like it's The Substance, right? Like, how are you feeling about this?
Once The Substance got locked in that Best Picture nomination, it was kind of assured. And I felt good about it even before it was a serious Best Picture contender. For a long time, people were like, well, that could get into makeup, period. When we didn't know.
That's what I was saying.
Exactly. We thought it could be its only nomination. To your point, this category does not shy away from horror. This is one of the few areas that the Academy is willing to embrace horror. I'd say it could do more, but I do think the two contenders here are both doing horror-style makeup, which is Substance and Nosferatu. That being said, this is The Substance. I would put money down on this. I feel very good about this. I know I said this about Wicked winning costumes. This might be my most confident prediction of the night, is Substance winning makeup. It is part of the story of the film. The third act is entirely a showcase for that, plus all the transformations leading up to it.
Right.
Before you even get to Monstro Elizasu, is very impressive. So I'm definitely going with The Substance.
In some ways, I feel like, if The Substance had only gotten into, let's say, makeup and actress and nothing else, I think I still would predict The Substance here. But, but because it's in director and picture, it's like, I mean, it's gotta win makeup, right?
Well, another point in its favor is that it is an acting nominee and a very strong potential winner in that acting category. And those two things align so frequently lately. They love giving best makeup to a film that has an acclaimed performance that is reliant on that makeup. Usually this is with a character playing a real-life historical figure, Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, all the the rogues gallery of ghouls in Vice. But this is still the same criteria, but with a fictional person. So it's kind of the blending of everything that they love, which is really obvious, heavy prosthetic latex work, and it's connected to an acclaimed performance that the Academy loves.
Yeah, I mean, that's been going back a few years now, right? Makeup and an acting category, they line up. And, when Poor Things won makeup last year, I went, oh, things are looking good.
Yeah.
For Emma Stone, things are looking good. So, I mean, I still don't think Demi Moore has Best Actress, sewn up, just in the bag, it's done. We'll see what happens at BAFTA and SAG. But I would be shocked if The Substance were to lose here. I don't really see, it's not going to lose to A Different Man, Amelia Perez, Wicked. Those aren't winning makeup. That would be surprising to me.
I think Wicked is probably my third place here.
Okay.
The lead character is wearing makeup the entire movie. Granted,
well,
I'm not disregarding the work. It is much, I would say, probably simpler makeup
more
work.
Subtle.
It is green face paint. Granted, there is work involved to get the right shade and the right contour. I understand all that. But I don't think it's the type of work that the Academy is going to appreciate over something like The Substance.
Yeah. So outside of a total shocker, I think we both feel pretty confident in this category. Our final prediction to win Best Makeup and Hairstyling at the Oscars is The Substance. Okay, next up is Best Original Score. The nominees are The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robots. So, how is Wicked here, Cody? How is that, eligible?
I understand why it's eligible. What I don't understand is why this is eligible, but Dune Part 2 is not.
Right.
For kind of doing the same thing. And I actually think the Wicked score is quite lovely. When you listen to it on its own, it is very memorable in terms of locking in certain moments in the film. I can remember exact images when I hear the music. But a lot of the beauty of the score is the songs from Wicked, which are good songs. So it's not a super fair equivalency. When musicals are recognized here, lately it's been things like La La Land, which is an original musical, which has very distinct moments that are score, moments that are song. Amelia Perez this year, similar to Wicked, is a musical, obviously. But there's a very distinct song versus score. I would say there's much less score in Amelia Perez. It's mostly a sung-through movie. So I think that's kind of just a recognition of the overall work of the musicians. But Wicked's nomination here is odd, mostly because of Dune Part 2's ineligibility. I don't really understand how one wasn't even allowed to contend and one got nominated, but
those crazy rules.
The music branch is a weird one. They have some of the weirdest rulings and rules, and we're gonna lean on the rules with this one, but not on this one.
Yeah, I must say I love that The Wild Robot is here. That is an inspired nomination for original score, and was unexpected, I would say. In terms of what can win, Cody, I think it's down to The Brutalist or Conclave, right? Is that what you're feeling?
Definitely. I mean, Conclave is the same composer as All Quiet, which somehow won a few years ago. And Brutalist, similar to how cinematography is part of the story of that film, the score is highlighted so explicitly throughout The Brutalist. I mean, it starts with an overture. So right away, your brain goes, okay, I have to pay attention to the score. And the score is really good.
It's really good.
The score is very, very good in The Brutalist. It's become one of those scores that is already iconic amongst film lovers. You think of the brass, you think of that synthy stuff at the end. It's very specific and very identifiable. You hear those brass notes and that's The Brutalist. You could also say that with Conclave. Conclave is a much zippier score, and it keeps the pace of the film going. I don't think it has as many standout individual moments like The Brutalist does. I'd say that's definitely my second place. It's also a strong Best Picture contender, obviously, and it could still win here. There's a path where Conclave wins 4 Oscars, Best Picture and score included. But I do think this is going to go to The Brutalist.
Yeah, I'm feeling The Brutalist too. That's the score that really stood out this last year. That and Challengers. Come on, Academy. What were you thinking?
I was predicting it when it won the Globe. You know, like
right. It won the Globe.
The surprise here for me was Wicked. The other four seemed pretty set, so I wasn't surprised by any of those.
The Wild Robot didn't surprise you?
No, not at all.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
What surprised me is that it didn't get nominated in song. But
okay, yeah, right.
The score, DreamWorks movies get into score sometimes, and the score is very important to the film. The writer won Best Documentary Short last year, so he's technically already an Oscar winner.
Oh.
But yeah, Wicked was the surprise here, and it knocked out Challengers for me, which was disappointing.
Like, I kind of knew, like, Challengers was never going to win at the Oscars in score, but I just wanted the nomination to happen. So yeah, I look at that category now, and I'm like, it just doesn't look right to me. But yeah, I mean, Conclave could take this, and, you know, we'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I just think, like, how do you deny the score to The Brutalist? It is so epic in scope. It is so memorable. So yeah, our final prediction to win Best Original Score at the Oscars is The Brutalist. All right, also in music, Cody, our next category is Best Original Song. The nominees are El Mal from Emilia Perez, The Journey from the 6888, Like a Bird from Sing Sing, Mi Camino from Emilia Perez, and Never Too Late from Elton John, Never Too Late. This is another category, Cody. I'm kind of like going back and forth on a couple of these. I don't really know. Like, for a while, I was feeling El Mal, that won at the Globes, right? So, like, you know, it feels like with 13 nominations, Emilia Perez wins probably one or two, if not more, even with all the controversy and stuff. I don't know. It's got 2 song nominations here. It won at the Globes. I've been leaning toward El Mal, but I mean, there is a path, I think, for a couple of these other songs. Like, what are you feeling right now?
I was not sure if El Mal would be the type of song that wins. It is very story-based. It is a very specific sound. A lot of times when they give awards to musical songs, they go with ballads. They go with songs that are easily able to be lifted out of the film, which applies to Mi Camino, not to El Mal. But El Mal being in Spanish, I think a lot of non-Spanish speaking Academy voters probably can listen to it and remember the scene in the film. It is a very exciting song. And once the Globes gave it the win and kind of gave permission to voters to award that song, I do think it kind of is just going to be the default frontrunner. Okay. I really don't think there's a strong competitor here. I would say Mi Camino is my second place, but that feels weird. Like, much like I'm Just Ken was second place last year, but I think we all knew it was going to go to the, again, more ballady hit song in Barbie. I don't know what could seriously contend after that. I think Diane Warren's song is good.
It's pretty good. I listened to it this morning.
Worst ones.
It's not bad.
No, but there seems to be no energy behind it. I think if and when Diane Warren finally wins her competitive Oscar, it's going to feel like an achievement, you know, an ascendancy. Okay. Not this kind of like, oh, it's going to almost surprisingly win against a Best Picture frontrunner from the same studio that put out her movie. They're both Netflix movies. So, I don't know. I don't think Elton John's song really has a chance here. It's not very good. He just won a few years ago. And the Sing Sing song is probably my favorite of these 5.
Oh, okay.
But it's still not great. I mean, I'm being rude. But it's a bit dreary, as are kind of all these songs. It's not the best lineup. But once that film didn't get into Best Picture, this was a surprise nomination, actually. And I think it's just going to be El Mal.
Okay, so you're more confident than I am. There has been such controversy over Emilia Perez the last few days that I'm like, what if that movie just really underperforms in terms of wins and something else can take this category? Like, I mean, there is a narrative for Diane Warren, and I do feel like that movie is at a higher level than the last few she's been nominated for. It's on Netflix.
For sure.
It's a period drama. It's 2 hours plus. It's got Kerry Washington. I think, listening to these 5 songs this morning, I think her song The Journey is better than the last few. So I'm like, if voters just did not want to give their vote to Amelia Perez and wanted to just finally give Warren one, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. I don't think I can predict it. But, like, I'm not going to be totally shocked, Cody, if that were to happen. It's possible.
Right. She's my 3rd place, and it's the closest I have to her winning since her song for The Hunting Ground, which she almost won for.
Right.
Since then, her songs have been 4th or 5th place at best. I don't think that the controversy, the Carla Sofia Gascon tweet controversy, is going to affect it in this category.
Okay.
Nor in supporting actress. I feel pretty confident that those 2 awards feel separate from the larger narrative of the film, from the troubling narrative of the film, both the actual narrative itself and the narrative about the film as an object. And I also really have a hard time predicting a movie with 13 nominations going home completely empty-handed. And those are its 2 most likely categories, is song and supporting actress. If it went home empty-handed, it would, by 2 awards, become the most nominated film ever to ever walk away with 0 wins, which currently is held by The Color Purple and The Turning Point, which both have 11 nominations.
Right.
So it would leapfrog those movies by quite a substantial loss tally. So I don't know. I don't think the controversy affects it here. It's a musical. Musicals win this award. Not frequently, but not infrequently, but it's an original musical. So there's a very obvious way to award the film's achievements for those that like the movie, and that's to give it Best Song.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume there's going to be a large body in the Academy who are just watching the movie and maybe liking it and seeing it just down their ballot, one category after another. There's going to be people who probably just check it off because they like it, and I feel like in this category, it makes the most sense. If, like, Amelia Perez were to lose here, then we know it might be going home empty-handed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of alarmist reactions to Amelia Perez in both directions. We've talked about this. When it got 13 nominations, you saw a lot of people going, it's over, wrap it up. It's going to win Best Picture, to which I said, no. How often does the film with the most nominations win Best Picture? It's about 50-50.
Yeah.
And then when this tweet controversy happened, I saw a lot of reactions in the opposite direction. It's getting nothing now. The movie is dead. No. I don't think the Academy is as tuned in as we think they are. I do think this controversy has blown up to the point where it will affect the film's chances in Best Picture, and certainly in Best Actress. You know, it's in Variety, it's in the trades. It's not just online anymore. So Academy voters are seeing it, and you see Netflix kind of quietly walking back her from their FYC campaign. But again, I think we're being alarmist in both directions in terms of this is going to win Best Picture, this is going to win 0 awards. It's probably in the middle, realistically.
You're right. It's probably going to get something.
1 or 2.
It might just be 1 or 2. My other quick thought, Cody, was like, could there be enough people who just look at this category, maybe they don't care for Amelia Perez, and they say, I really like Elton John. Check.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, wasn't Rocket Man wasn't the only nomination for Rocket Man in this category? Didn't get anything else? Yeah,
that was a little different though, because Rocket Man won the Globe for Best Song, and Elton John got up there and said, you know, Bernie and I have never won an award together.
Oh,
and
okay.
The second he said that, I went, congrats on your Oscar. Like, that's gonna win. That's such a narrative. And it did. It won even though it was its only nomination.
Yeah, there's no narrative this year with Elton John. It'd just be like, people don't like the other 4 songs or something, and just they like Elton enough.
Yeah, he just won. This song is like thematically similar to the song he won for Rocket Man, but it's a worse song. So, yeah, the music is nice, and that's the part that they'd be rewarding Elton John for, because he doesn't write lyrics. But overall, it's just not a very impressive song. And also, when you watch the documentary, which people are going to vote here, having not seen the documentary, we watched the it's kind of mediocre, but it is just a lot of great songs, obviously, because it goes through his entire career.
Yeah.
And then this song appears at the end, and it is so not comparative to anything that came before at all.
Yeah. So, what is going to be Diane Warren's losing face, Cody, if she loses again? What's she gonna do?
She seems to adopt a very stunned expression.
She was kind of a...
Yeah. I think she's probably gonna win next year, though. So, because
you think she's gonna win what?
She's gonna win at the next Oscars.
Oh, why?
She has a documentary out now called Diane Warren Relentless, which is a biographical documentary about her that ends with a song she wrote for the movie, sung by Kesha, called Dear Me, which is written to her younger self. So it is a very, very strong narrative. But also she'll be going up against 2 new songs from Wicked. So we'll see. But I mean, she'll be nominated next year. She's nominated every freaking year. And next year she could win, because that's a very strong, clear, defined narrative.
You think Diane Warren could finally win her Oscar after decades, her competitive Oscar, for a documentary that's about her? Okay.
I think it's pretty... If I'm that distributor, I'm like, fantastic. This is an easy narrative. We just have to push it.
Yeah, I feel like Wicked's going to be a big competitor for sure if that has new songs.
Unless that movie's a disaster, but...
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm not feeling super confident about this category. Again, I'm a little nervous. Like, we'll see how Amelia Perez does on Oscars night. But I do think, I agree with you, Cody. I think it's going to win 1 or 2. Like, it's not going to go home 0 for 13. That would be crazy. That would be really nuts. So our final prediction for Best Original Song at the Oscars is El Mal from Amelia Perez. Next up is Best Production Design. The nominees are The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. No Amelia Perez. Cody?
This is like the one category it missed. This and Selena, which would have put it over into the most nominated of all time.
I mean, it's just like you go down the list, that movie's in everything. It's everywhere. And so we finally get to a category, production design. It is not competing to win here. So I don't know. There could be a couple films competing like right at the top here, Cody. What are you feeling right now in production design?
I feel pretty confident in my prediction. Not as confident as the other category I have it winning, but I do think Wicked will probably prevail here.
Yeah.
I think The Brutalist is very clearly second place, and a lot of the reason for that is because the art direction and the production design, the sets, are part of the story of the film. It is about the construction of spaces. It is about designing rooms and buildings, which are exactly what this category is awarding. But it's not the kind of visual look to the sets that this category and the Academy at large usually go with. It would get my vote. I think it's very impressively done, especially on the budget it had. But I think Wicked, which, similar to costumes, it won the equivalent Tony Award for 20 years ago. Granted, it's a very different look, but it is the type of property that just feels like big sets, big costumes, which it has. Big, colorful, grand environments and locations. So I feel pretty good about Wicked here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can eliminate the other 3. I don't see this going to Conclave, Dune Part 2. As I've said, it doesn't have as much enthusiasm as the first film at the Oscars, so I don't see that winning production design.
It did win this category last time, so I wouldn't throw it out completely. It's my third place.
Okay,
but I don't think it's going to win here.
Yeah, I would have that in third place. Nosferatu, I think if they're like the least likely for that movie to win would be production design. I don't see that happening. So yeah, this morning I was like, well, it could be The Brutalist. Like, if they really go all in on that movie and it wins maybe a couple more things than we're expecting, it wouldn't be a shocker. I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. But I just think, like, the production design of Wicked is so spectacular, and the movie got a ton of nominations. It's in picture. It's going to be competitive to win other things. I just think, even if it's close, I think Wicked takes this over The Brutalist.
Yeah, and it's not every time, but you do see production and costume design go together pretty frequently. Poor Things did it last year. Black Panther did it a few years ago. So it's not a guaranteed statistic, but it does help.
Yeah. So I mean, I would also love to see the Brutalists win this. I think that would be really cool. I don't know if the AI controversy might affect that in this category because, like, maybe there's like a little bit we see in the movie where it's not like tangible or, I don't know how that goes down or if that affects this, potentially not winning, but.
So to my mind, what I understand is based on the clarification provided by the filmmakers, I believe the only AI that was actually used in the finished product was to adjust some accent work in voiceover.
Okay, so there is no,
it.
like, it's not with any buildings you see in the movie, that's all.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I know there was talk of there was some, like, AI renderings at the end, but I also think that term is getting kind of, and let me be clear, vehemently anti-AI in design. Yeah. Generative AI, I think, is evil, frankly. Mm-hmm. But from my understanding, I think what is being called AI in terms of like the designs that we see at the end is kind of closer to just Photoshop or general graphic design. It's just the current term to use is AI. Again, I'm not positive, but that's the impression I get about it.
Yeah, so, I feel pretty good Wicked wins at least 2, maybe 3, ultimately, and we'll see what happens in the top 8 categories. Like, after BAFTA and SAG, we'll have a better feeling about, like, the acting categories and things. But yeah, I'm feeling like, outside of a surprise, in a way, a small surprise maybe, for the Brutalist, I think Wicked is probably taking this one. So I agree with you. Our final prediction to win Best Production Design at the Oscars is Wicked. All right, 2 categories left in this video. We have Best Sound next. The nominees are A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robots. So this is the other category, Cody. I'm like, I guess it's probably Wicked, but Dune Part 2 got a lot of nominations. That one here.
You think Wicked's gonna win sound? You think Wicked's going to win this category?
Why wouldn't Wicked win sound?
Because Dune's going to win.
Because Dune's going to win.
Yeah.
Why do you feel? I've been kind of
going. Dune, lock it up.
Okay. I was thinking Dune Part 2, and then I don't know. I was just looking at the category, and I thought, musicals win in sound, right?
I think Wicked's in third place.
Really? I thought A Complete Unknown seemed farther down. I feel like Wicked would be above A Complete Unknown. It's not going to be The Wild Robot. No. Yeah, okay. Maybe I've been overthinking this one because for a few days I'm like, it's going to be Dune Part 2, but I feel like that movie is just, there hasn't been a lot of enthusiasm, and I'm like, maybe it could also lose sound. You feel like almost 100% it's Dune Part 2 in sound?
I see what you're saying, because, yes, let's take The Wild Robot out. That's not winning, sorry. It was a surprise nomination. So that means it's Dune versus 3, let's just to simplify, call them musicals.
Okay.
Which do well here, to your point. I do think A Complete Unknown probably stands out a little bit more than Wicked and Emilia Perez. It feels like the kind of more constructed sound as opposed to Wicked and Emilia Perez, which are heavier musical work. I'm feeling very in the weeds, and I'm describing things that are hard to describe here. But this category oftentimes pairs with visual effects, which we're going to talk about in a second, which I feel pretty confidently we're going to agree is probably going to Dune Part 2. It won for the first movie. And this category can go to movies that are otherwise not doing as well as they may want to at that point. Things like when Top Gun Maverick won, and that was pretty locked in. That was that movie's only win. And it was, yes, a Best Picture nominee, but like Dune Part 2, I think it was only 4 or 5 nominations overall. It missed in some surprising places, but it still won this category. So I feel pretty good about it being Dune Part 2. I think it just feels like the type of movie that Academy voters will look at the sound recognition. And there's times like last year when Zone of Interest somewhat surprisingly won over Oppenheimer, where the expected frontrunner didn't win. But the difference there is that the story of Zone of Interest, and you heard a lot of people like us talking about this before not predicting it, was based around the sound. The sound was necessary to get the purpose of the film across. And I don't think you can say that about the 3 musical films here, which, granted, yes, it's about people singing, I understand. But I just think this is going to be Dune. I don't really... To the point where, like, yes, Complete Unknown is my runner-up, but I don't feel much better about that than Wicked or Amelia Perez's chances.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point that it's like, okay, if they want to reward a musical here, it's like there's 3 different movies that have a ton of songs and stuff. So it's like, well, how... I was kind of basing it more on, like, maybe there's just not a lot of love for Dune Part 2, and there is a lot of love for Wicked. Like, I'm just like, well, maybe that could overtake it here, and Dune Part 2 only takes visual effects. Do you know, what was the last musical to take sound? Has it been a while? Like, it doesn't happen very often?
Les Mis
the last
one?
5 years? Okay. It's not like musicals.
The difference is they used to have the sound mixing and the sound editing categories. Right. So you got things like Whiplash one, which isn't a musical, but it's a music film. So if it's not music, it's like big action that wins here.
Okay. Like, didn't Bohemian Rhapsody win sound?
It did, but you could call that a musical if you want to.
Yeah.
It's not, but, you know, in the eyes of the voters.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe Wicked kind of cancels itself out with these other 2 musicals here, and we just, make this easy and pair Dune Part 2, like, for wins in sound and visual effects. I mean, the first Dune did win, 6 prizes, technical prizes, 3 years ago? So it feels like Dune Part 2 could win 1 or 2 pretty easily, so... All right, you're changing my mind. I don't know. I wasn't feeling Dune Part 2 as much as you are.
It to my earlier point kind of limped into Best Picture. I saw a lot of people not even predicting it for Best Picture. But I think if there was one musical here that could draw votes from Dune Part 2, then I would say go with it. But there's 3. So that's tough.
Yeah.
And not one of them has kind of elevated to be like, that's the musical to give awards to, because there's arguments like Wicked's the most traditional musical there, so there's that, they like that. Amelia Perez has 13 nominations, clearly they like it. A Complete Unknown did about as well on nomination morning as it could, so they also clearly like that. So I don't see a strong narrative for one of those 3, so I do think Dune will just kind of overshadow them all.
Is there a precursor before Oscars night for sound, like that we can get a sign, like oh, maybe it is going to be such and such?
There's a few. There's the Motion Picture Sound Editors Guild. There's the Cinema Audio Society. I don't know off the top of my head if those have happened already. But those would be where you look. Obviously, also there's BAFTA and Critics' Choice. But Dune Part 2 just...
help.
BAFTA will help, but Dune Part 2 kind of just feels like the winner in this category to me.
Yeah, I mean... If you watch that movie, like, the sound design in Dune Part 2 is extraordinary. It's so great. And I'm just like overthinking, like, Dune Part 2 maybe just kind of being a womp womp at the end of the ceremony, and maybe it only takes visual effects. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it would be a pretty big swing to go for one of those 3 musicals here, because I could say, you know what, I'm just going to go with Wicked. Maybe it's Wicked, and then it ends up being a Complete Unknown. Like, that could happen. Sure. So it's, like, possible.
I mean, the other... I'm looking at the BAFTA nominees now. The only nominations that are carry it over from BAFTA to the Oscars are Dune Part 2 and Wicked. And they loved A Complete Unknown. They gave it a Best Picture nomination. I'm kind of surprised it didn't get in here. So I feel like Dune Part 2 will probably win there and then just follow its lead to the Oscars. So the BAFTAs don't always line up, obviously, but...
Did Zone of Interest win Best Sound at BAFTA?
I believe so.
I think it did. I remember, like, I feel like that happened. It beat
Oppenheimer.
And then, and so some of us were like, well, maybe it could happen at the Oscars, but I felt like Oppenheimer was just dominating to such an extent, and it has such creative use of sound in that movie. I was like, it's going to be Oppenheimer, and then it did turn out to be Zone of Interest. So, like, if Wicked wins Best Sound at BAFTA, then we might change our mind. No?
I don't think so. I don't think so? That feels like the type of thing that BAFTA would go for. I could see them going with something weird like The Substance. Like, that got a really cool Best Sound nomination.
That would have been a great nomination.
It would be amazing.
Why is The Substance not here?
But I don't.
I would have loved
I don't know. I'm still waiting on the other precursors to, like, make a more defined prediction.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go with Dune Part 2 for now.
Okay. If you had been really in the middle, not sure, I might have maybe leaned toward Wicked, but I think you're right. I think the smart choice here is Dune Part 2. There could be a surprise, and we'll see what happens at these other precursors at BAFTA and stuff. But yeah, I personally would want Dune Part 2 to win. So yeah, I mean, like, that movie deserves to win 2 technical prizes at the Oscars.
If Best Sound were still split, mixing and editing, I think Dune would probably win sound editing, and then one of the music films would win Best Sound Mixing, and probably not even be nominated in sound editing. So,
okay. I think the viewers are disappointed because we were finally going to have a fight in this video.
I mean, we didn't even really talk about Emilia Perez. That has some really impressive, like, gun work.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a contender here. It's clearly a favorite of the Academies. If they just say, screw you to all the haters and give it like 6 awards, this could come along for the ride. It could happen.
Oh my god. You imagine, like, Emilia Perez ultimately wins like 7. Like, it's not just 1 or 2.
It could happen.
Like,
I don't think it's going to, but it could.
Yeah. So I'm saying there's a possibility in sound, I think. We could get a surprise there. But yeah, I think the smart choice ultimately, after having this discussion, I think you're right. I think it's Dune Part 2. So our final prediction to win Best Sound at the Oscars is Dune Part 2. And the final category we're talking about in this video today is Best Visual Effects. The nominees are Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. Is this the easiest category to call, Cody, of this entire video?
It's up there with makeup and costumes. Yeah. It's at the point where this decade is going to be like Dune and Avatar trading off this category because Avatar is going to win next year. So,
and then Dune Messiah is the year after that, right?
Sure, exactly.
So it's just going to be Dune and Avatar.
Yeah. Yep. I don't even know what I can definitively say a second place here. A lot of people
Wicked,
are saying Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but like they haven't given that franchise a single award. It's just been a very perennial nominee.
Yeah.
Wicked's a Best Picture nomination, but I personally wouldn't call the visual effects in that like too spectacular.
Yeah, I just think Wicked is in second because it's like the most popular film here.
Yes,
it's in picture.
popular.
It's in a bunch of categories. Popular.
It's a song in the movie Wicked.
I mean, I could see some lazy Academy members who just really enjoyed Wicked, just checking off Wicked down the like, maybe. So I feel like that might be in second place, but like, Better Man has amazing visual effects, but that, it's the only nomination for the movie.
Better Man will get my vote. I think the accomplishment in bringing that monkey to life is insane.
Yeah.
But it's not a serious contender here for the win.
I like that Alien Romulus is an Oscar-nominated film. I really enjoyed that film.
They love that franchise. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's here. And then, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, I just, I feel like the visual effects work in that franchise, as good as it is in that film, there's nothing like, super new about it. So I wouldn't see that beating Dune Part 2. I feel like if there's one place Dune Part 2 has to win something, it's this category. So I don't think there's much to say here other than our final prediction to win Best Visual Effects at the Oscars is Dune Part 2. Well, this was a lot of fun, Cody. We're going to be back in a few days talking about the 3 features categories and the 3 shorts categories. I need your help with those, Cody.
I need my help. I need my own help. I don't know what's going on.
Especially the shorts categories, that's where everybody stumbles. Year to year, you can do really well throughout the ceremony, but you miss 2 or 3 of those, and then your tally goes down.
Yep.
It's like... So, I don't know if we can both see everything in those 6 categories, but we'll do our best.
I'm gonna try. Yeah.
We'll try to have that video for you in a few days from now. But yeah, this was a blast, Cody, always to have you on the Awards Contender talking Oscar predictions. If you can tell our viewers where they can find you online, now would be the time.
Thanks for having me, as always. You can find my writing and podcasting at Next Best Picture and Awards Watch. I have my own podcast, Halloweeners, a horror movie podcast, where we're talking about Nosferatu. I'll just say that.
Oh, cool.
And I'm all over the place, every social media site at CodyMonster91.
All right. We'll have you back here soon, Cody. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time at the Awards Contender.